This is Bucket Talk, a weekly podcast for people who work in the trades and construction that aren't just trying to survive, but have the ambition and desire to thrive. The opportunity in the trades and construction is absolutely ridiculous right now. So if you're hungry, it's time to eat. We discuss what it takes to rise from the bottom to the top with people who are well on their way and roll up their sleeves every single day.
All right, today we're here with Garit Sullivan of CW_woodworking. Welcome, Garit.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Good. Fancy meeting you again after Makers Camp. That was wonderful.
Oh, New York was a blast. I told my wife I'm basically going to go hang out with 500 of my closest friends. But she'd call me every day. She'd be like, "How was your day with your friends?" But it was good. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, that was my first experience. I mentioned it in the Rob Rojas podcast, but man, it was mind blowing. It was a blast. Learned a lot of things. The team got introduced to a lot of new things. So definitely was a good place to be, and we'll be up there next year. So I'm super pumped for that. But yeah, I wanted to get we met in person, got a little history on you, but I'd like to share it with our audience. Kind of dive into everything that's behind you.
Yeah, that's a lot. So this shop is actually shop number 2 in this location. So about 2 years ago, we had an EF3 tornado come through here, and it basically ripped the shop apart.
Yep.
Picked up a grizzly 15-inch, chucked it. So basically everything in here is either new-ish or new to me or new.
Well, let's go back to shop 1. Like, what was the kind of thesis for all of this? How'd you want to jump in and do this? Where'd you learn all the skills, buy all the tools?
So this all got started when I got sober. So I got sober about a little over 7 years ago, and had to find something to keep my hands busy, and had tinkered with woodworking, all my life. My dad was a tinkerer. My grandfather taught me a lot. He built me my first skateboard ramp when I was a kid. And when he passed away, all his tools came to my dad. And when I started asking him questions, he was like, "Hey, we'll just take this one." And he'd start giving me, let me use tools of his. And so I built my first rolling workbench to house the table saw and the miter saw, and that's it.
Nice. That's good. That's awesome. So then how did you all of a sudden decide you wanted to open up a shop and do all the fun stuff that you do? I mean, you got a stack of cutting boards ready for Christmas behind you. Like what?
Yeah. So I made a cutting board just on a whim and gave it to a buddy of mine as a gift. And his friend wanted one, and his buddy wanted one, word of mouth. And my wife said, "Why don't you try to sell them?" And they were nothing like they are now. A lot of trial and error in these. But back then I was like, nobody's going to buy these. They're just sticks of wood stuck together. Yeah. And so I put out on Facebook, it's just my personal page. I said, "Hey, I'm going to make a batch of these cutting boards. Who would like one?" And that ended up the first order was for 30 people. And so we did that. And about 2 weeks later, my wife said, "Try it again, see what happens."
Yeah.
So I tried it again. And the second order was 45 people. And she was like, "I think you got some."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, well, we'll see what happens." So my wife decided she wanted to buy a radio station. So we moved into the middle of nowhere. In Americus, Georgia.
Hold on a second. That's not like a small thing to kind of breeze over.
Yeah, my life is nothing, but it's definitely not normal. My wife and I have been married for a little over 6 years, together for a little over 7.
Congrats.
And we've lived in 7 different houses in that time frame. So she used to work in radio when she was younger, and she got a call from an old friend of hers that had this little radio station out in the middle of nowhere. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to come do this with me and buy into it?" And she was like, "Screw it, why not?" It's one of those things, if you don't do it, it's always going to nag at you, right? Like, what if? So we did it. It was not what we imagined. but she stuck with it. And while I was down there, CW Woodworking really got born. We bought a house that had a 20 by 30 foot outbuilding.
Okay.
So that was my shop.
Yeah.
I wired it, 220 and all that stuff. And I started traveling and doing markets. I traveled back to Chattanooga, back to here a lot. And I was doing this little market out in front of this, a hotel called the Westin.
Yeah.
So we were out front. I was out front of there I did that for about a year. And there's another market here in town. It's called the Chattanooga Market. And it's a staple in the community. Over 200 vendors. It's looks like an old warehouse that was turned into a huge pavilion. And my wife was like, just try. I was like, no, there's a guy that's been there since I think at that time it was 17 years. They knew him as the board man. I was like, they're not going to let me in.
Yeah.
Because you have to apply. You have to show them your shop. You have to show them your process. Everything's handmade at that place. So I put my paper in to apply. I was like, screw it, I'll do it. And come to find out, the board man had put in his retirement paper that day. So we slid right in. We've been down there. This is our 4th year down there. And it's amazing. It really is. We're there from April through the end of November. And then December, we move inside for a week, 3 weeks. So yeah, and the best part is this is my side job.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I do like to touch on people's main hustles a little bit, but like, is it related to what you do, or is this completely different from what you do? Or are there any carryover?
Completely different.
Wow.
Absolutely different. I am in the tech world. I am what you would call a scrum master. Layman's terms, I'm a project manager. I am a contractor. I actually work for a company called Tech System, but I'm at Whirlpool right now. And will be, I think they're almost about to sign my contract for 2023. So we've been very blessed in that aspect. A lot of hard work, especially with this. I now have an apprentice. He may show up at some point. He doesn't know I'm doing this, so he may just walk in and look dumbfounded. That's all right. And I've got a salesperson that works for me sometimes.
That's cool.
So
that's cool.
It's grown, and I love it.
So are there any carryover traits? Is there anything that you do in your normal job that help you out here? With the business aspect of it, with fulfilling orders, keeping everything all together, or just no carryover whatsoever?
There's really no carryover. I keep this separate. This is my therapy, if you will.
Yep.
Some people ask me, they're like, how is this relaxing to you?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, basically every machine in this shop in some form or fashion can kill me.
Yeah.
So you got to you got to block everything out and just kind of put it aside for, I'm in here a couple hours every day. And it's nice. It's stressful right now because it's the holiday, but most times it's just relaxing.
Well, I mean, there is kind of some excitement to the fact that you're one of the few people that bring it up, is that how dangerous some of the equipment that we work with is, and I mean, I wouldn't say there's it's thrilling in like a thrill seeker's way, but to some
no,
it is you harnessing your craft, something that a lot of people would consider dangerous or using stuff. I mean, I've had metal removed from my eye. I've had like all sorts of mishaps in my time. And when you do tell those stories and you do talk to people, they're like, "Really, that happened to you?" And it kind of, I mean, not to make it sound like it's a small part of the day, but it is funny to see have that go on behind you and around those tools, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I can tell everybody, and if you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. As soon as it happens, you freak out and you step away for a minute, right? Everybody, it's like that everything in life pauses, and you've just replayed your entire life, but you got to get right back into it.
Yeah,
you have to.
Either that or the blood just doesn't start flowing yet, and then you're sitting there looking at it going, this thing's going to bleed like no other, but not happening right now?
Like I had a table saw kick back on me. It was my first table saw.
Oh,
It was an old Craftsman built in like the
yeah.
60s. And I was cutting up some heart pine, and it pinched and came back at me. It was a piece about, inch and a half by inch and a half.
Yeah.
And it was long. Grazed off my rib cage, knocked the wind out of me, and then literally stuck in the metal building wall. It kicked it back so fast. And I was terrified. But the next day I had to get back and, I had to get back and cut the same thing. Otherwise I would probably never do it again.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I used to cut some pretty big pieces of metal, and we had this big hilty, like, a widowmaker of a saw, and it's bucking on you as you're holding it. And I'm like, I'm gonna die, right?
yeah.
And you got your foreman looking at you going, that, like, he's been doing it for years. Like, this is what it is. And yeah, I mean, I've had discs break apart and slam into the wall and what have you, and you're just like, oh geez, man.
My apprentice and I have been talking. He's like, I want to get on the table saw and do some thin cuts. And that's where you can really start splitting and blowing stuff off there. And
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, it's fun to teach you. That's been a fun part. That's a whole different aspect is I never thought I'd have an apprentice. I just needed help in the shop.
Yeah.
He's actually my child's partner, and he is amazing, good worker.
Yeah.
But I never thought I'd be that guy that would be teaching somebody else, and I really enjoyed it. So we're going to we just found out there's a high school here that has a woodshop class, and I'm going to try to see if I can get involved next year. A lot of them show up at the market and ask me questions.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm making a cutting board. Can you help me with this? And that's been fun. That's a whole separate piece I'm trying to think about doing, because you and I, we live in this world, right? We live around these tools. We know these tools, but there are people that don't know how to use a drill. Just because they've never been around it, right? Like, I used to laugh at people like that, but in all seriousness, they've just never, it's like a sewing machine. I've never been around it. I would have no idea how to use it, but my mom would laugh at me. She'd be like, no, you just do this.
Well, I mean, and it's cool because, first off, there's the scary portion. People don't realize it, but as a new manager, a new foreman, just anybody, you're in business for yourself and you're taking that next step and having somebody work with you. It is kind of scary because there's not only the admin side of things, like, how am I going to pay this guy? When am I going to pay this guy? Sick time, all that stuff. But yeah, the passing on the knowledge, like, am I doing it the right way to be able to tell this guy, like, I'm getting the job done, right? But am I actually doing it the right way? You know what I mean? And so yeah, I agree. The whole empowerment aspect is interesting. But you're right. I've handed kids a screwdriver and they didn't know which end to use, or couldn't even tell you what it was. But I mean, that's a fulfilling side of things too, is being able to help them through that.
Pass that knowledge along.
Yeah, absolutely. And us that are in the trades take a lot of things for granted when it comes to taking something apart or building something, that when you actually go to, you find somebody that hasn't been able to do it, and they're like, hey, I'm hanging this toilet paper holder in my bathroom, and they got the template out and they're drilling the holes, and it's just, I had a buddy like this, and I went in and I showed him, and he's like, I can't believe you can do that. And it was something so small for me, but something like mind-blowing for him. He would have paid a contractor to do it.
Yeah, and my wife will say that. She's like, or friends of mine, they'll say, we can just hire somebody to do this, and it was building some floating shelves.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would you pay somebody to do that? Like, you don't think about it just because we're around it. What were we talking about a minute ago? Oh, the radio station. How we got off onto teaching people. Yeah, so my wife came to me and she was like, hey, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And me, I'm just, sure, why not? Let's go. So we moved down there. We were down there about 2 years. And then we were done with it. It wasn't what she wanted after some time. And so, we sold out of it and moved back here.
So first shop, you got it all set up. You obviously have, tools that you've acquired over your life from various people, from buying yourself, then it all goes to shit. You get
Yeah, so we, when we moved back here, that was the part I was going to get into. When we moved back here, I moved out of the shop I had. I was used to a 30 by 20 foot building. And when we moved back, my wife and I have a goal, and I think that goal is going to start next year, finally. Pretty excited. But we had to rent a house, so you can't put a shop in a rental, right? So talked to my mom, my pop, and we put the shop at their house. My father has arthritis in his spine. He's about, he's a big boy. And so movement is hard for him.
Yeah.
Well, what we noticed and what we figured out is when I came over here, he would come out and tinker and play at his workbench and just mess around.
Yeah.
And so a couple Saturdays, Mom would call and she'd be like, "Hey, are you coming to your shop today?" I said, "No, I hadn't planned on it. Why?" She said, "Well, Dad was asking. He was, seeing if you were going to be, I'll be there in a minute." Because it's cool to hang out with my old man. You never know how long you get. So it's to the point now that we've bought another house, and I could have a shop there, but I don't want to move it from here.
Yeah.
Because of him.
Yeah.
And so we're here until, we'll at some point move it into the new property. But for right now, we're hanging out here. So yeah, everything got destroyed. This whole house we're in right now, there used to be walls everywhere, and there just aren't anymore because they redid the roof was completely ripped off, and so they basically redid everything in this house.
What was going
on? Well, we were at our house. My mom and dad were here.
Oh,
this is their house.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so we were at our house. Our house got destroyed too. Our house shifted about 5 degrees on the foundation.
That's rough.
We were in it. My wife froze. Thank goodness she doesn't remember much because I threw her down a flight of stairs. My daughter, it was one of those things where one thing had been different, it would have been a completely different story. Everybody we talked to, the base of this tornado was over a half a mile wide. And everybody had that one moment that I talked to. There were only 4 deaths in that. That was it. And it looks like a war zone around there after. But yeah, it was terrifying. The fight or flight thing's real.
Yeah.
I was making sure my child and my wife were okay. And her golden retriever, Gary, that, anything happens to that dog, we're all in trouble. Then we had people come over here, help clean up trees. We had a ton of trees down everywhere. We didn't have to worry about our place too much because it was a rental. But we had to find a place to live.
Yeah.
So we did that for a little while. And then we started dealing with insurance, which was a blast, let me tell you. I went through and looked at all of my tools, wrote down everything that was wrong. And we sent it to the insurance person, and they said, because my dad had helped on a lot of these tools, they were his tools. And the insurance person was like, "We'll have an electrician come out and look at them." And I'm thinking, cool, if you could have a pool guy come out and look at the cars, that'd be about as helpful. He didn't find that funny. I did. And so went by Woodcraft because I knew those guys. We got one here locally.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this, but this one for fire, flood, any kind of disaster like that, they'll send somebody out to assess the damage of your tools.
That's actually pretty neat. We talked about this because that's like my worst nightmare is theft, any of that stuff. We've talked about it. We've kicked it around at the shop. Like, you really got to ask those questions, especially if you're bringing tools somewhere else or even on your own property, because they'll cover so much. Even if you document everything and stuff, insurance companies will fight. I actually had to take out additional insurance on my toolbox because it was worth so much because my company's policy wouldn't cover it. And I'm like, This thing walks out the shop, I'm screwed. My livelihood is gone.
You're done.
Yeah.
You can't. There was no way I could have come back from everything I had acquired over the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Because everything we made profit-wise went back into the shop. New tools, new, things that make it easier.
And
I went from a little Grizzly 6-inch benchtop joiner to now it's a, 8-inch wide, 72-inch bed. There's no way you could have come back from that.
Yeah, well, and it's crazy too because a lot of people just assume that insurance is going to cover it. Well, and it's a plethora of things like hail damage, flooding, doesn't matter, right? People assume that the policy will take care of it. They might take a hit on it for depreciation or what have you, but that's not the case. Like you might not get any of it covered, right? How do they know that you had that screwdriver in that spot? And they're going to fight you tooth and nail over it. You know what I mean? So just documenting everything, make sure that you understand your policy. Take out extra insurance if that's your livelihood. And renters.
One thing, yeah, renters insurance is huge. One thing we've started doing now that we never did before was we'll take random, like every about 3 months, we'll take a video, walk around the house and just take a video of everything, every room, open up every door, cabinet, because that's one thing my parents, they lost they had to go through everything.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, there's no way I could document. She's been in this house for 30 something years.
Yeah. I don't even know.
You're not going to remember. Right. So yeah, anybody, I recommend taking a video of your house, your shop, everything. It doesn't have to be a long one because you can pause on everything if you want. But yeah, I recommend that. So the tornado happened. So we started rebuilding and we kept the shop here. And then we really started doing big things. I now work with several hotels in town, doing pieces for them. I have a realtor that's on contract with me. They get so many a month.
Pause that thought. 1 second.
No worries.
That's the one person you can't tell you have a podcast, and that's your dog. They don't give a crap.
So, speaking of dog, we have 3 dogs, 2 cats, 2 turtles, and a mother-in-law. No, she's all right. I gave her hell at the beginning, but now, I literally will openly make fun of her, and she openly makes fun of me. She laughs at my dad jokes. It's amazing. She walked downstairs one day and she goes, I have a problem. I said, you're old?
I feel bad. I feel bad for my wife. It's bad for me, but not as bad for my wife. My parents moved back in the farm, so they've been helping out, and it's like a blessing and a curse. I know she's gonna be watching it, swearing in the comment section, but it's just like it's one day they're your best friend and everything's flowing, and the next day you're just tripping over each other, and you're like, why can't you get another house? Like, go away.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not the butler of the house. Figure it out, people. We're grown here.
So,
go ahead.
No, you were working with people in town, the realtor.
Yeah, so we got the realtor. We've got the 2 hotels that we've worked with. One we still continuously work with. We just did some charger plates for their chef's table. That it's only 12 people and the chef does this big customizable dinner. It's pretty cool.
So what is that? A charger plate, you mean?
So charger plate, if you ever go to or you see like a decorative table, like somebody's decorated a big table, you'll see the dinner plate, like a bigger plate under it.
Yep.
That's a charger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know either. A lot of this, to be honest, I learned from my mom. She was a wedding planner forever.
Okay.
So I learned a lot of that kind of stuff. So one thing we did do after the tornado is, and it's a mess, and she's going to murder me if she ever sees this, but I want to show you this real quick. Let's see.
Well, my wife doesn't watch the podcast, so.
Oh, this is my mother. So let me show you this guy.
Wow.
That is solid 8-quarter white oak trestle table that I made. Took 5 of us to get the top in.
Wow. I was more admiring the placemats. Who did those? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The table's amazing.
Well, what's really bad is I have to look because it could be somebody around here. I mean, the cabinets my friend made
Wow.
here. You know, there's literally there's a lot of handmade stuff around here because you know I like supporting small businesses. Mainly, I learned a lot from having one.
Yeah.
Right. So I got a sales guy to work part of December because my wife's favorite holiday is Christmas.
Yeah.
And so one of the Sundays I'm not there, she and I go down. You know, if somebody wants to go with us, cool. But she and I go down and we do a lot of Christmas shopping from all the vendors that are local. But yeah, so big things coming up. I am actually, my wife, what's today? 30th. So in 8 days, that's my wife's last day at her job. She has been off and on at this company for over 15 years. She started there when she was like 19.
Yeah.
And between my day job and how well the woodworking is going, I'm going to retire my wife. And she's going to be the admin. So the website, we've been working on that. And the website will kick off hopefully in February.
Hell yeah. Congrats.
And she's going to handle the admin for that. And we're going to start pushing to be in a lot of these local shops. My goal one day is to take on booze blocks. Why not?
There you go. So obviously you're looking to expand, or is this kind of where like your comfort zone you want to be, or you're looking for like a place to set up shop and sell, out of, or are you just looking to distribute with?
I won't ever have a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough business for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get, can I make other stuff? Yes. Do I want to? No. I've fallen into a niche. When we were down in Georgia, my wife would go out to sell stuff and they'd be like, "Oh, your husband's the cutting board guy." She's like, "We've been here for 3 days. How do they know?" I'm sorry. I talk a lot. Never met a stranger. I don't care. She gets so she actually told me one day, she said, "Don't be mad if scarecrows don't talk back to you." Because I've never met a stranger in my life. Well, wherever we go, I've made a friend.
There you go.
Yeah, why not? Life's too short. So she's going to do the admin of that, and we're just going to see where it goes. With her doing the admin side, the shipping side, the business side, all I have to do is make stuff.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me.
So that leads me to another question is like,
yeah.
You don't work under anybody. You work for yourself. And that was kind of where I became stagnant in my career. Was I became the shop foreman quickly. And then I realized there were no other inputs into my life, right? It was whatever you learned on YouTube, whatever you learned from a school that you happen to sign up for, or whatever. Where do you get your expanded knowledge? So is it like, obviously Maker's Camp was one of them, but like, how often are you learning new things? Where are you consuming this knowledge from?
So I have a lot of friends locally that do different things that I like to hang out. I try to hang out as much as possible. Yeah. I don't have a lot of free time these days, but as far as the cutting boards, people have asked me like, where did you, because like I said, the first ones are way different than now. I said, a lot of it's trial and error. Yeah. And then seeing Instagram, a lot of my best friends now are from Instagram.
Yeah.
There's a guy out in Colorado. Actually, he just ordered a pair of boots the other day. We were talking about that, and he said, he goes, we've been friends for almost 5 years. He stayed at my house, and when we were in Georgia. But I learned a lot from him. Good mutual friend of ours, Lucas. I bounce ideas off him all the time.
Yeah, and that's cool to work with people nationally because there's a lot of regional secrets that have been passed on from generation to generation, from, you know, woodworking techniques to metalcraft to what have you, that somebody in the Pacific Northwest and somebody from northern Maine do things completely different. And once they jive, you're like, oh shit, like we just came up with something and it's gonna be awesome. So
man, I call him Kansas guy. He's actually he lives in Colorado now, but he originally is in Kansas. And my wife, you know, she tells me all the time, she goes, I can't keep up with all your friends. You gotta, so we've started making like monikers, like, y'all will be you know, I was talking to one of the Brunt guys. I know your name. She's never going to remember it. That's what you are now. Just deal with it. Kansas guy's Kansas guy. But we'll talk in like what sells in my market. He's never thought about over there.
right.
And what's in his market, I've never thought about. And so that's where this collaboration with all these trays came from.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like I'll rant. I guess some of my best friendships and the best people I learn from are random strangers. I know it sounds weird.
Yeah.
I've got a good friend of mine. He makes guitars, and he makes some of the most beautiful acoustic guitars you've ever seen in your life.
Okay.
And I met him in Georgia. He had a little shop in that town we lived in. And I literally, you can ask him to this day, we laugh about it. I literally walked into his shop. It's like, hey, I'm a woodworker. You're a woodworker. We're going to be friends. Like legit, just basically said that. And he's one of my best friends in the world.
Well, you know what? I mean, it's really kind of that like showstopper. Like what's going to grab somebody's attention? You're obviously engaged in what they do. You know, so did I just pique your interest, or did we just cut through all the bullshit and we're not going to be friends? So there was no point in having that 30-minute interaction that nobody actually gave a crap about.
Right. Like one thing I do now with my cutting boards is I call them pinstriping. So it's almost as thin as like veneer.
Yeah.
And I'll run it between two dark pieces. And it literally looks like a pinstripe. And I got that from his inlays on his acoustic.
Yeah.
Like he runs a real thin line around certain places. And so that was a very odd collaboration there. And I was up in Toronto, but, you know, I guess I've got away from your question. A lot of it is I like the personal interaction.
Yeah.
And so I'll seek out people that do what I'm looking for. I will use YouTube. I don't do YouTube a lot. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Just never have. Unless I want to do something specific. It's usually something that's way outside of my comfort zone, like electrical work or, you know, plumbing. I'll go there. But I really like if I know somebody that does it, because I was a bartender forever here in town. And so I've met a lot of people. And so if somebody does something I want to know about, I'll literally just call them up and say, hey, I want to pick your brain for a little while.
That's good shit.
I don't know.
No, I mean, it is. It is. And it takes amazing is it takes a certain class of person too. You know, having that outgoing personality, being able to talk obviously helps with the customer service aspect and all the sales aspect that you do. But it also helps you get information that you want out of somebody, whether it's, you know, hey, what do you do? Show me what you do. A lot of people shy away from it. And then, you know, on their ride home gone, shit, I should have asked them about this. Right. And it's always having those regrets that, you know, if you can see them and capitalize on them before you actually have that long car ride home going, well, I wish I talked. And that happened to me at Makers Camp. There was a few folks that I wanted to talk to at Makers Camp. And I just, you know, one I couldn't find, but, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot. So I definitely capitalize on them next go around. But yeah, I was like, ride home. I was like, shit, I wish I got 15 minutes with that person.
You know, you asked me earlier if my day job leaked into this life. So when I was at Maker Camp and Lucas was making fun of me until about day 2, I had taken the schedule and literally made my calendar put down, you know, like meetings, but they were the classes that I wanted to do. Yeah. And so my calendar, and I was showing it to Lucas, he was like, you're not going to do. And about day 2, he was like, okay, I can see how that was smart. But he laughed at me for having that. I was like, dude, this is how my brain works. I set alarms I forget everything.
Yeah.
Ask my wife. It's so bad. So I literally will just say, hey, Siri, set an alarm for this. And all of a sudden I'll be out in public and the alarm will go off and be like, pick up dry cleaning. Like, you have to set an alarm for that? It's like, well, I won't get yelled at later. So
my wife,
there you go.
I'm laughing because my wife does the same thing, except there's no label to it. So an alarm will go off and she has no idea what she set it for.
See, I learned from that mistake very early on because I'd be like, oh, okay. What's this for? No idea. No clue.
Oh, shit. That's hysterical.
Didn't you set an alarm? I sure did.
So get this thing back on the rails here. One of the things I like to ask is so obviously, you know, one of the biggest challenge you had was rebuilding the shop and going through the whole insurance process and all that. But what is one of the current challenges that you're facing that you want to kind of overcome or you're dealing with now?
Burnout.
Really?
Yeah, burnout. So I've been doing this this is my 6th year. It's my 4th year at this market. Let's be honest, cutting boards are not rocket science.
Yeah.
They're just not. I do things that are specific, that are special. I've got something really cool in the works. But I've basically been making the same thing for 6 years.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot I don't do customize, you know, I'll do a little bit of customized, you know, inlay work. But with the market, nobody comes out to a farmer's market ready to spend $300 on a cutting board.
Yeah.
Right. So I keep it simple, edge grain boards. And I was talking to my wife about it. So we're going to start doing something pretty cool. And I've put out some prototypes. I almost brought it up to Maker Camp as my maker gift, but it wouldn't fit in the suitcase.
Yeah.
We've been making these custom birdhouses. I found one my grandfather made. He was using steam bending and patinaing metal, just fun stuff with just junk he found.
Yeah.
So I've been playing with that. But yeah, burnout's a big thing I've been dealing with lately. And
now, if you don't mind me asking a personal question, because I know it affects guys in the trades a lot, but burnout's dangerous for your sobriety, correct?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a very rare odd bird. Like, my sobriety wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard either. I was given a choice one day. My bosses, who happened to be 2 of my best friends, they were in my wedding.
Yep.
Pulled me aside and said, listen, either get sober or you're fired. And I came home. My wife she was my girlfriend at the time. And I came home and I told her what happened. And she goes, well, I don't disagree with him. Either get sober or I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So I quit drinking that day. But what I find when I do burnout, and a lot of people that deal with, you know, mental issues of some kind, you'll notice they're always doing a project.
Yeah.
And that's me. I always am doing a project, but I've started focusing it more on good stuff. Like, we have a garden now. I love it. I've learned how to compost, which is fun. I'm just now, and my wife literally told me this today, said, you're not Superman. I was showing her everything that I had made, and she said, if you don't think that's enough, that's on you. Because I'm never where I want to be. So burnout, I think, is because I push myself so hard all the time, and I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, adding another variety or adding a new skill, a new product, that's really going to liven it up a little bit and make things better for you.
Well, that, and, you know, I always say I never have enough made for markets. I always sell exactly what I need to. I always have enough, but I never think it. So one thing I've really actively started doing is setting aside 30 minutes, 45 minutes when I'm in the shop to do something new. to try something different. You know, that's how the birdhouses started. That's how the trays started. That's also how I started. Have you ever heard of a noodle board?
I have, but it's not.
Stovetop cover.
Okay.
Basically a board that you put over your
Okay.
stove. I started making some really high scale ones. Not just, you know, a lot of them you see have somebody's name on them and they just have little iron handles on them. Mine are basically really big cutting boards. And I use a lot of exotics, a lot of Peruvian walnut, a lot of black limba.
Where do you get it all from?
I've got a couple of vendors around me. I just found one that's down in Kennesaw, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half south of me, that literally delivers it to my doorstep. Game changer. Do I pay a little bit more? Absolutely. Do I care? None.
Yeah, I just didn't know.
Time is my biggest
Yeah,
thing.
I didn't know if you were importing it yourself or if you went through a...
I'm not on that scale yet. I'd like to be, but not yet. We have I guess my goal, and what's really I'm putting my effort towards now is what's going to happen in 15 years.
Yeah.
What am I going to be doing I'm 43. What am I going to be doing in 20 years? Am I still going to be making cutting boards?
You got to prepare for it.
Probably. Because this business is very lucrative. We've done very well. So it's a great retirement plan. It's just getting over that hump of the burnout right now. And I think after the off season, because I don't step foot in my shop from January till the middle of March after the holidays. But one thing we're looking at doing is Airbnb experiences at the new place. You want to come work in the wood shop? We're going to build some little tiny houses on the property. You want to come work in the wood shop? Come stay a weekend.
There's going to be a hell of an insurance policy.
Yeah, I've already looked into that one. Trust me.
Here, sign your waiver. Sign your waiver.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a friend that's a lawyer. He's like, dude, that waiver is going to have to be like, it's like, that's why I'm going to pay you.
We with our horse farm, we did the same. We had to, and it was our boarding agreement and our waiver was just like, it was probably one of the most expensive documents that we've paid for.
Yep. And worth every penny.
Well,
right.
Hopefully. It hasn't been.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you don't want to have to use it, but I'm saying if you it's like a condom on prom night. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. My wife. But my wife is second generation Italian who was raised in the country.
Yeah.
She can cook.
Yeah.
So she can't cook for two people. When she cooks, it's like a meal for 10, but it's a
family style.
I love it. Yeah. I don't know. It's fun to see where you're at now. And the people you meet. That was one of the things that brought me to you guys. I started seeing how y'all handled the community around you, and I got tired of I am tired of supporting companies that have no idea who you are or care, right? And so that's what I want to do in my business is get more involved in the community. I do a lot more charity work now. I'll donate to certain things, but I donate to what I want to donate for. I don't donate to just people that ask, because most of the people just ask, they just want something free.
Yep.
So we've started doing that. I don't know. I literally, my brain goes all over the place. So just stop me when I get
this
off
is one hell of a podcast. It is. We're branching out in all directions. Love it.
I love it. I was very excited. And am I childish when I say I was extremely excited to do this? Absolutely not. Most people would. It's funny, especially as males, right? We're taught to be like stoic, right? Just by general, like, no. Dude, I was excited as I was giddy like a school kid. And it's for different reasons. It's because somebody wants to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to talk to me and I'm getting off here in about 15, 20 minutes, and I'm going to talk to a group of parents about sobriety and kids.
Yeah.
They asked me to do that. So I don't know. I guess I'm trying to break the stigmatism of you can't be, you can still be excited like a kid about stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, life's worth living, right? Might as well get excited, sharing the emotions. I mean, I agree. There's days that I feel emotionless, if you will, and I
Yeah.
know I should feel some emotion, and it's like, certain things don't bother me, and I'm like, it should bother me. Like I should be upset, or I should be happy, or whatever the feeling is. And you're right. I mean, I guess you get numb to it. You know,
Well, you push it aside
yeah,
so much that it's just
repressed.
that's
Yeah.
your go-to, right? That's how you handle things. That's your immediate reaction. Is something bothers you?
Yep.
I'll just focus on something
Yep.
else. Skin your knee, walk it off. Not feeling good, take a nap.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's one thing we've been talking about in my group of friends is really pushing uncomfortable communication. Admitting when you're overwhelmed mentally, because we've all been there. Small business. I mean, there's been days that you literally don't know what to do because you're so overwhelmed. Whether you agree, whether you admit it or not, you've been there. Everybody has. And so we try to talk to people about that. Anybody I come in contact with, I'll bring that conversation up. And that's where your true your true relationships in this line of work come from.
Well, and having that open line of communication too. I don't know. There's been people that have that until you've had an experience, right? And I'll use this one. Me and my wife were trying early on, and we had a miscarriage, right? And then we found out from the doctor that essentially it's like 1 in 3, right? And
Right.
then so now I'm starting to think. Then I started to talk to people, and they've had miscarriages, and and it was crushing for me. But on the flip side, right? Nobody would volunteer that information prior to the event. So
nope.
Here I am feeling like I've done something wrong, like her body has done something wrong, like we've done something wrong here. And then come to find out, once you started talking to people, you're like, it doesn't make it any. It doesn't make it.
It doesn't make it any easier, but it makes it better knowing that somebody else has gone through
100%. And it's like, damn, if I had known this, like now all of a sudden you're getting better support. People are telling you, because then there's the healing process, and that's what helps with healing. And I feel like a lot of people are just so guarded and close that they won't tell you, like, hey man, I've been sober for 15 years. What? Like, how'd you get so, like? And then you can start asking those questions. I don't know.
Yeah. People. It really makes people. One thing I learned, it really makes people uncomfortable telling them you're an alcoholic. Yeah. Most people do not they don't know what to do. People will be like, hey, do you want a beer? No, I'm good. Why not? I've been sober for 7 years. And all of a sudden people's demeanor changes. But I like to do that because it's okay. Take that stigma away from it.
Yeah, but I've been guilty of those put off moments, right? Where I offer the beer and they're like, no, I'm sober. And now you're sitting there like, what happened?
You're like,
yeah, exactly. And it's like, no.
Anybody else want this?
Well, I mean, as I get older too, I realize that, we've all struggled with something. I've struggled with that line, if you will. And,
yep.
I've been fortunate enough, I guess, to dial it back to where I haven't had to lose it, but I've been aware of that line many times. And, especially going through the military, tough times, work, stress, all that stuff. So, I know where that line is. And yeah, it's the older I get, the more I realize that they're just as normal as you are. Just because they don't want a beer doesn't mean they probably got more.
I'm still the same. Dude, my pants are on the same as yours right now. Crazy. We don't, but
Wait, you're wearing pants?
what's real? Oh, yeah, sorry. Forgot to tell you that. I get up, I got nothing on. Well, this changed direction real fast. One thing I've also, like you were talking about with the miscarriage stuff, when I talk about the reason I am open about being an alcoholic is I've helped a lot of people that you never would have thought about or never would have helped because people, it's a stigma. They're like something, like you said, like something's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just going through something. That's it. But woodworking has, it really has changed my life for the better all the way. I've worked I was one of those people that I never worried about not having a job. Like nothing was beneath me. I pressure washed a football stadium one summer. I've logged cypress trees out of swampland in middle Georgia. That was a horrible day. It's getting past, learning all those traits, trying to do a little bit of everything. And as you get older, I don't remember the moment when it happened, but as I got older, and my wife has a lot to do with me, my wife has made me a better man for sure, is having those conversations and being open about what you are and what you're going through. And I try to be more that way too. And it's almost too much sometimes. Like people are like, oh, you're trying too hard. No, I'm not trying too hard at all. This is my life. If it's not you, I'll still be your friend all day, every day, but I'm not going to dial it back anymore on what's happening, what I want to do, and I don't think anybody should. So it's fun to have conversations, especially you're right, like the mindset of makers. Like when we said, you're going to New York to hang out with 500 of your closest friends. Literally, I would turn around and talk to a stranger, and we were best friends in like 10 minutes.
Dude, and that was the best part about that place too. Is that there's some guys that are way up there, and there's some guys that are just starting off, and that was one of the very few places that, not that there's seniority within the maker community, but there was whatever titles or seniority or hierarchy or whatever you had there was gone, and it was Mr. This guy would miss this guy, miss this girl, and it was fluid. It was amazing, and there was just a free flow of information, knowledge, obviously a whole bunch of fun, but yeah, it was dropping all those barriers and just like really getting down to everybody being passionate about their craft, and learning about others' crafts and how they could help or how somebody else could contribute to their life. And it was amazing. It was awesome.
Yeah, it really, and let's be honest, there is a starstruck feeling when you get to a creator that's, million followers, stuff like that. There is. And you're exactly right. If you didn't see those people's faces, right? If you didn't know who they were beforehand, you would have never known they were like that.
Well,
the people that were there, I mean,
and not to take from them too, but like it also gave me more confidence because now you're seeing them as a human, right? Like you're standing in front of them and you're sitting there going, it's not so big and scary as you would assume it would be, like going to meet this, fuck Jimmy DiResta, let's just put it that way, or all trades, some of these bigger names, right? You realize that they have once again, they put their pants on just like you.
Yep. They deal with the same mental problem, whether it may not be the same, but they deal with the same anguish. They deal with the same, they have found a way to make it work for them. I would love to focus more on social media next year. I'm a small creator, but the fun thing about being a small creator is the relationships you still get to have. Like when you get up to that level, I've talked to some people that are 20,000, 30,000. They're like, I have to turn off my notifications sometimes. I was like, I wouldn't know what that's like.
Somebody called me today?
Yeah, right. Like if my wife calls me, I'm good. You got to meet her one day. She's my biggest cheerleader. She's like, and we were talking about the other day. I am not the one to ask if I should do something or if you should do something or not. I'm not that person because I'm always going to say yes. Always. I don't care what it is. If you want to do it, it makes you happy, do it. And my wife's the same way. She was like, screw what people think. If it makes you happy, do it. So.
Well, that's that Southern hospitality. You come up here, we're a little bit meaner.
I don't know. She's got a mean side too.
Awesome. So, all right, outside of the woodworking, outside of your job with Whirlpool, what is like you go hiking, fishing? How do you unwind?
Yeah, so I'm big outdoors, but I'm backpacking outdoors, not hunting outdoors. I have hunted in the past, but I really enjoy backpacking. I enjoy everything being on me that I need. We'll go for several days. And we'll try to get a trip together in January with some buddies.
Like minimalist survival or like more like
No. I mean, I've spent some time building up my gear. I like to be comfortable, but it is kind of minimalist. But if it can't fit in my backpack, it doesn't go with me. Right now, do I have a 65-liter backpack? Absolutely. But I love to. My wife and I started going hiking last year with the dog. It was awesome. We've started traveling. We've started. We played a new game this year. We put 3 places each. We wrote on a little piece of paper. We wadded it up. One was within 6 hours driving. One was in North America, either Canada, Mexico, or U.S. And one was international. And we wrote them on this, and we put them in a cup, shook it up, and had her mother pick. And the last one in the cup is where we're going this year. I think we're going to D.C. this year. She's never been. I haven't been since I was a kid. But we're starting to travel more. I love to travel.
Go source that Peruvian wood.
Right.
Sir, you can't take
true
customs.
True story. I was in Toronto. I went by a shop, Rustic Designs by Rich. Makes river tables. Him and his son. And he sent me, while I was up there for my day job, he said, hey, you need to go see my lumber yard. So he sent me the address. I went down there. I'm not kidding you. They had padauk trees. Not little slabs. I'm talking this is where they import from overseas. This is the first stop. These trees the slabs were wider than my reach, and I've got a 6'3", 6'4" wingspan. And about the size of a school bus. These sections of trees.
I mean, see, that's crazy because my wife was in the hardwood flooring industry, and just the how to keep a lot of that wood, climate control and all that stuff. I couldn't imagine seeing something like that sitting on a container ship for, for like, how does it get shipped? Like that's got to be a process in its own right.
And I just think to myself, that's one of those things that like, it can go bad real fast. Like, that's just my thought. Like, did you leave the stove on? Like, did you wax the end of the tree or paint the end? It can go bad fast. But yeah, I love to hike. I love my wife. We have started in the last few years really taking time for ourselves. We can sit on the couch one night on a Friday night and just not speak. But because we're trying to slow down a little bit more as we get older, just to enjoy it, because it does go by quick. Our son's 26 yesterday. Like, daughter's 20. It flies. Yeah. Real fast.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that. I mean, I don't want to be that old guy that's like, oh, enjoy this while it lasts, but it's true. I mean, I had 1 infant, 2 infants. Now they're 6 and 8, but they might as well be 14. You know what I mean? And pretty soon they'll be out of the house.
Do you have a daughter?
I do. She's 8.
Okay. When she's 15, don't call me. I got nothing for you, dude. I'm just kidding. I dealt with a bad hair day with the 15-year-old. Like, she decided she wanted a pixie cut, like the short haircut. I was so bad. And I was a new stepdad coming into it, like within less than a year in, and this happened. I have no idea what to do. It's so bad. But yeah, that's another thing is family. We have family dinner night every Sunday.
Yeah, that's big.
The kids.
That's big. Yeah.
The kids come over. We do, big meals. I don't know. I never really thought about it. I don't do much. I'm kind of boring.
No, I mean, this is, like I said, I mean, we're getting to the end of the show, but I mean, yeah, you're not boring by any means. I do think that a lot of people look at consistency as potentially being boring. With my life in the automotive industry and my hyperactivity and all, you can put a label on it, but I'm not going to. Anyway, so it was just one of those things that, like, I was constantly doing something different and had my hands involved in other things. But when I looked at the person that, had the routine, did the same thing over and over again, was really happy and really content with what they did, I'm like, they're boring. Like, no, that's just a completely different way of living.
It is. And, we're starting now to have a little bit more fun. I want to go back to where we honeymooned down in Belize. That was fun. It was an amazing trip. But I also want to, like we were talking about the woodworking. I want to figure out what's next. Do I want to add another CNC, or do I want to? I think after talking with one of the guys from Green Street Joinery up in New York, a wide belt sander. Because at this point, with what I do, time is where I make my money. My wood's locked in at price. I mean, it varies, it fluctuates, but not much. Machines are all paid for. So where I make more money is time. So how can I do it more
efficiently,
quickly, but properly? Properly quick. I guess that's a new term. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, next challenge that Garrett's facing. Well, we're at the end of the podcast, and I'm sure we can go on and on and on and on. But I do want to take this time for you to be able to plug where we could find you, where we could purchase a cutting board from you, where we could learn more about Garit, ask him questions. So the floor is yours for websites, handles, books, blogs, whatever.
So, CW_woodworking on Instagram, CW Wood, one word, on TikTok, which I never thought I'd be doing. But somehow we're at almost 8,000 so far. Facebook is CW Woodworking. Be careful when you look, because, I didn't think about this when I started. CW is my grandfather's initials because of his tools. That's where this name came from. There was a guy that makes furniture out in the middle of nowhere that won't come up off his URL. So when the website starts up, it'll be cwwoodworking.net.
Okay.
And that should be in February, so look for that. But Instagram is where we do a lot of our communication. Right. You can order from there. If you see something you like, I haven't been posting because I've been so heads down in the holidays. But if you've got an idea, you want something, you see something you like, shoot me a message. I've shipped all across the country to some pretty cool people, and still friends with a lot of them, which is really cool. But yeah, CW Wood on TikTok, CW_woodworking on Instagram, cwwoodworking.net come February, and I'll be posting a lot about that coming soon. An email is Garit, Garit, at cwwoodworking.net. Shoot me an email.
There you
go. Whatever you need.
Awesome.
So there you go.
Well, thanks.
Dude, I appreciate this. I really do appreciate you having me on. I enjoy stuff like this.
Awesome. I was glad to dive deeper, actually. We didn't get to talk that much, and this was even better. So obviously have you on again, and we'll have you on when you're 60, and we'll really figure out if you drew out that.
If we did it, I wanna talk in 3 years and see if my apprentice is that now running the place. That's my goal, is for everybody around me to do better than they're doing now.
There you go.
So
awesome.
And as a special thanks to our loyal listeners, we're giving $10 off your next purchase of $60 or more at BRUNTWorkwear.com. Use discount code BucketTalk10. That's BucketTalk10